The Awakening. Commander Alara Novik stood frozen before the holographic display, her usually composed demeanor shattered by the message floating before her. After 30 years as administrator of Jupiter Station, the largest human outpost in the outer solar system, she thought she had seen everything the cosmos could offer. She was wrong. "Verify authentication," she ordered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Message verified at highest confidence levels," responded the station's AI. "Origin matches unknown vessel currently holding position beyond Pluto's orbit." Alara read the message again, its formal, almost archaic phrasing at odds with its content. "To the leadership of the human territories. The Grand Imperium of Crixus hereby declares formal hostilities against your species for violations of sovereign space and resource rights. Prepare your military forces for engagement in 14 solar cycles. Surrender terms are enclosed." "Get me the United Earth Council," Alara said, straightening her uniform jacket, a ceremonial garment that hadn't changed its design in 1,500 years because there had been no need. Humanity hadn't fought a war in over 3 millennia. Within hours, the Emergency Council convened virtually. Representatives from Earth, Mars, the Jovian colonies, and 32 other settlements throughout the solar system appeared as holograms in Alara's office. Director Hiram Osai, head of the United Earth Council, looked particularly disturbed. "I've reviewed the message," he said gravely, "and confirmed the presence of the alien vessel. This appears to be legitimate first contact and a declaration of war in the same breath." "How do we respond to a war declaration when we haven't maintained a military since the unification?" asked Counselor Juno Yamato from Mars Colony. Dr. Marcus Vega, Earth's leading xenobiologist, stroked his silver beard thoughtfully. "This species, these Crixians, they've been observing us perhaps for decades, yet they've completely misunderstood our civilization." "Explain," Alara prompted. "Their message refers repeatedly to territorial violations, military protocols, and battlefield honor," Vega replied. "They're approaching this interaction through the lens of their own culture, one apparently centered around formalized conflict." Director Osai's hologram flickered as he leaned forward. "Then we need to correct their misunderstanding immediately. Commander Novik, you're our closest administrative authority. I'm authorizing you to establish direct communication." Alara nodded, though unease settled in her stomach. "And if they insist on this, war." The silence that followed was answer enough. 3 days later, the situation had deteriorated. Long-range sensors detected a fleet of over 300 vessels crossing Saturn's orbit, maintaining perfect geometric formations that spoke of military precision. Earth's scientific vessels, the closest thing to a fleet humanity maintained, had intercepted detailed scans of the approaching ships, revealing weapons systems of frightening capacity. "They're not bluffing," Alara told the reconvened council from the observation deck of Jupiter Station. "And there's more. Our deep space telescopes have detected 3 additional fleets holding position at the edge of our solar system." "Have they responded to our communication attempts?" asked Counselor Yamato. "Yes," Dr. Vega answered, stepping into view beside Alara. "But not productively. When we explained that humanity has evolved beyond warfare, their response was..." He hesitated. "Laughter," Alara finished for him. "At least, we believe it was their equivalent of laughter." The revelation sent ripples of concern through the assembled counselors. Director Osai's expression hardened. "We've maintained peace for 3,000 years. We've turned asteroid belts into gardens, transformed worlds, and stretched out among the stars without ever raising a weapon against each other or any other species we've encountered. Are we now expected to abandon that legacy?" Dr. Vega cleared his throat. "With respect, Director, I've been analyzing their communications and comparing them with historical records of Earth's war-making cultures. The Crixians appear to follow ritualized combat protocols, highly formalized and rule-bound. Their declaration mentioned 14 solar cycles. That's their preparation time." "Preparation for what exactly?" asked a counselor from the Neptune colonies. "War," Alara answered simply. They expect us to marshal our forces, form battle lines, and meet them in combat according to their traditions. But we have no forces to marshal, Counselor Yamato pointed out. Our ships are designed for exploration and transportation, not combat. An uncomfortable silence fell over the council. Then, to everyone's surprise, Elara spoke up, her voice quiet but firm. Actually, we do. All eyes turned to her. When I was appointed administrator, I was granted access to the Heritage Archives, historical records preserved from before the Great Peace. Among them are complete technical specifications for pre-unification military technologies, tactical simulations, and strategic analyses. They've been preserved as historical artifacts, but the knowledge is still there. Director Osai's expression darkened. You're suggesting we build weapons after 3,000 years of peace? I'm suggesting we prepare options, Elara countered. The Kryxians have given us 14 days. In that time, we can attempt further diplomatic contact, but we should also understand what we're facing. After heated debate, the Council reluctantly authorized Elara to assemble a research team to explore the Heritage Archives, while diplomatic efforts would continue in parallel. Within days, Jupiter Station became the center of humanity's response. Dr. Marcus Vega established a xenocultural analysis lab, attempting to decipher more about Kryxian society from their communications and behavior. Meanwhile, Elara assembled a team of the brightest engineers, physicists, and historians to delve into the military archives. It's remarkable, said Jamal Hassan, a quantum physicist from Luna University, as they reviewed ancient designs for defensive shields. These concepts are primitive compared to our current energy manipulation technologies, but with modern refinements. We could adapt civilian systems, agreed Zhen Li, an engineer from Mars. Our atmospheric processors use similar principles for radiation shielding. Elara watched them work with mixed emotions. For the first time in millennia, humans were thinking in terms of defense and offense, of strategy and tactics. It felt like a betrayal of everything humanity had become, yet also strangely familiar, as if some dormant instinct was awakening. On the seventh day, disaster struck. A small Kryxian vessel bypassed Jupiter Station's sensors and materialized within visual range. Before anyone could react, it transmitted a simple message. Reconnaissance complete. Your preparations are inadequate. Final warning, surrender or face annihilation in 7 cycles. Then it vanished, using technology humanity had never seen before. The Council convened immediately. Panic threatened to overtake the proceedings until Dr. Vega stepped forward, his eyes bright with realization. They're testing us, he announced. This entire situation, it follows patterns from their communications. The Kryxians don't just practice war, they ritualize it. The scout ship, the warnings, the deadline, these are all part of their ceremonial approach to conflict. How does that help us? Demanded Counselor Yamato. Because rituals have rules, Elara said, understanding dawning. And if we can understand those rules, we might find an alternative that satisfies their cultural requirements without actual warfare, Dr. Vega finished. Director Osai looked skeptical. You believe we can avoid conflict by, what, playing along with their war games? Not exactly, Elara replied. She turned to the holographic display and pulled up an ancient image from the archives, 2 human leaders from the pre-unification era, sitting across from each other at a chess board instead of leading armies into battle. Throughout human history, we've found ways to channel competitive instincts into non-destructive outlets. Games of strategy, athletic competitions, diplomatic contests, they all served as alternatives to warfare. You want to challenge the Kryxians to a game? Someone asked incredulously. I want to offer them a form of competition that honors their martial traditions without requiring either of our species to destroy the other, Elara corrected. But first, we need to understand their culture better, and we need to be prepared if they refuse. The Council debated long into the night. When morning came to Jupiter Station, 2 paths were authorized. Dr. Vega would lead a diplomatic mission to attempt contact with the Kryxian fleet, while Commander Novik would accelerate the development of defensive technologies, just in case. As Alara watched Dr. Vega's ship depart, a small, unarmed vessel bearing humanity's hopes for continued peace, she couldn't help but wonder if humanity's 3,000 years of harmony had left them unprepared for a universe where not all species shared their values. She turned back to the Heritage Archives, where the ghosts of humanity's warlike past waited to be awakened. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of history pressing down upon her shoulders. "Project Phoenix is now active." Humanity had forgotten war. Now they might need to remember. The response, Project Phoenix, began as a whisper through Jupiter Station's secure communication channels. Within 48 hours, it transformed into a mobilization unlike anything humanity had witnessed in 3 millennia. Alara Novik stood before a curved viewport, watching as civilian transport vessels were retrofitted with hastily designed shield generators. Engineering teams worked around the clock, converting peaceful technology into defensive systems with a speed that surprised even her. "Administrator," a voice called from behind, "we've made a breakthrough." Tomás Rivera approached, his eyes reddened from sleepless nights. Originally an architectural preservation specialist from the Luna Historical Society, Rivera had become indispensable after discovering a sealed archive from the final days before the Great Peace. "The ancients weren't just preserving military knowledge," Rivera explained, projecting a holographic diagram. "They were evolving it. These are theoretical designs for defensive systems that were never built, conceptualized by military engineers as they were being decommissioned." Alara studied the schematics. "These interfaces are compatible with our modern systems." "Exactly," Rivera nodded excitedly. "It's as if they knew someday we might need them again. They left us breadcrumbs, administrator, not just records of what was, but visions of what could be." A communication alert interrupted them. "Incoming transmission from Dr. Vega's vessel," announced the station AI. The xenobiologist's face appeared, his expression tense but controlled. "Commander, the diplomatic mission has evolved. We've been permitted to board the Kryxian command vessel." "That's progress," Alara responded cautiously. "Perhaps," Vega replied. "Their Warmaster Drackthorn has agreed to speak with us directly, but there's a complication. They're insisting on ritual combat as a precondition for negotiation." Ilara's heart sank. "What kind of combat?" "Personal combat," Vega clarified. "They expect a champion to represent humanity against one of their warriors." The communication ended with arrangements for Alara to join the diplomatic vessel within 12 hours. As she prepared for departure, Rivera approached with what looked like an antique metal case. "We found this in the archives," he said, opening it to reveal a sleek black bodysuit. "The last generation of combat armor before disarmament. We've upgraded it with modern materials." Alara stared at the suit. "I'm not a warrior, Tomás." "None of us are," he replied softly. "But 3,000 years ago, neither were many who became one when needed." The Kryxian flagship loomed before Alara's shuttle, a massive construction of angular metal and pulsing energy fields. Unlike human vessels with their flowing, organic aesthetics, the alien ship bristled with obvious weapons systems and defensive arrays. Dr. Vega met her in the docking bay, his normally confident demeanor subdued. "They've been studying us for decades," he whispered as they were escorted through cavernous corridors. "They find our pacifism incomprehensible, even offensive. To them, a species without martial tradition lacks honor." "Then we'll need to show them another kind of strength," Alara replied. The ceremonial chamber they entered was clearly designed to intimidate. Thousands of Kryxian warriors stood in formation, their scaled bodies covered in ornate armor that displayed battle records and clan affiliations. At the center, on an elevated platform, waited Warmaster Drackthorn. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, the Kryxian leader's body was a testament to biological engineering for combat. Secondary limbs specialized for different weapons, reinforced bone structures visible beneath semi-transparent skin, and eyes that swiveled independently to track multiple threats. "The human delegation approaches," announced a translator device. "Let the ceremonial combat commence." "There appears to be a misunderstanding," Alara stated firmly. "We've come to discuss alternatives to conflict." Drackthorn's multiple eyes focused on her. "There are no alternatives. Combat determines worth. If you refuse, you declare your species unworthy of negotiation." Alara took a calculated risk. "We understand ritual and tradition, Warmaster. My species has traditions extending thousands of years, including forms of combat that test skill, strategy, and courage without necessitating destruction." A murmur ran through the assembled Kryxians. Drackthorn leaned forward, genuinely curious. "Explain." "Throughout human history, we developed contests that channeled our competitive nature. These war games tested the same qualities valued in actual combat: strategy, courage, endurance, while preserving resources and lives." Games, the Warmaster's tone suggested both dismissal and curiosity. "Simulated warfare," Alara clarified, "with agreed-upon rules and conditions for victory. The ancient Greeks called it agon, contest that reveals excellence without requiring annihilation." The Kryxian Council conferred in their native language, the harsh clicks and rumbles suggesting heated debate. Finally, Drackthorn addressed her again. "Your proposal has precedent," he admitted reluctantly. "In the ancient cycles before space travel, the Kryxian clans sometimes resolved disputes through the trial of champions, controlled combat with defined parameters." Hope flickered in Alara's chest. "Then you understand the concept." "We do," the Warmaster conceded. "But mere games will not satisfy honor. The stakes must be real, the consequences significant." "Name your terms," Alara replied. The terms were steep, a series of 3 challenges, with territorial rights to the outer solar system at stake. If humanity prevailed, the Kryxians would withdraw and recognize human sovereignty. If the Kryxians won, humans would cede all colonies beyond Mars and pay resource tributes for a century. The first challenge was underway aboard Jupiter Station, now transformed into a neutral competition ground. Kryxian engineers studied the setup with obvious skepticism, a virtual battlefield where strategic decisions would be tested without physical combat. "This is not warfare," protested a Kryxian commander named Gorvtak. "It is the essence of warfare," countered Tamaz Rivera, who had been selected as humanity's champion for the first challenge. "Strategy, resource allocation, and adaptation, the core elements that determine victory regardless of the weapons used." The simulation began, a complex scenario involving territory control across a virtual solar system. The Kryxians deployed conventional military tactics, overwhelming force, geometric formations, and coordinated strikes. Rivera countered with asymmetric approaches, using decentralized units and unpredictable maneuvers drawn from the ancient military archives. After 6 hours of intense competition, Rivera achieved a narrow victory. The Kryxians were visibly shocked. "You claim to have no military tradition," Gorvtak accused. "Yet your tactics show deep understanding of warfare." "We preserved knowledge while abandoning practice," Rivera explained. "Understanding conflict helped us transcend it." The second challenge followed immediately, a test of physical prowess and endurance in Jupiter's low-gravity environment. Here, the Kryxians expected easy victory against humans they perceived as physically inferior. They selected their champion, a warrior named Vexnar whose enhanced physiology made him seem unstoppable. Humanity's representative was Dr. Phoebe Nkosi, a geological surveyor from Ganymede whose specialty required her to work in varying gravity conditions. While not a warrior, her physical conditioning was exceptional. The contest, essentially capture the flag in 3-dimensional space with shifting gravitational fields, required both strength and adaptability. To everyone's surprise, including Alara's, Nkosi matched the Kryxian warrior point for point. What she lacked in raw strength, she compensated for with superior spatial awareness and efficient movement. When the final signal sounded, the score was tied. Deadlock, announced Drackthorn, clearly unsettled. The third challenge will determine the outcome. The final test was communication-based, deciphering and responding to complex information patterns while under time pressure. This challenge had been Dr. Vega's suggestion, designed to showcase humanity's collaborative problem-solving abilities against the Kryxians' hierarchical approach. As teams from both species worked frantically, something unexpected happened. A Kryxian engineer named Ethnar began mimicking the humans' collaborative method, sharing information laterally rather than reporting up the chain of command. When Drackthorn noticed and reprimanded him, Ethnar responded with an unprecedented challenge to authority. "Their method is superior in this context, Warmaster," he stated. "Adaptation is strength." The statement sent ripples through the Kryxian ranks. Meanwhile, the human team, led by xenolinguist Jun Huang, completed the challenge first, securing humanity's victory in the overall competition. In the aftermath, Alara and Drackthorn met privately to formalize the terms. The Warmaster's demeanor had shifted noticeably. "Your species confounds us," he admitted. "You possess knowledge of warfare but choose peace. You understand combat but prefer cooperation. This contradicts our understanding of evolutionary development." "Perhaps that's the greatest lesson of this encounter," Alara replied. "True strength isn't merely the capacity for destruction, it's the wisdom to know when not to use it." Drackthorn was silent for a long moment. "The Treaty of Jupiter will be honored. We withdraw our claims to your outer territories." Then, surprisingly, he added, "And we request ongoing cultural exchange." The formal signing ceremony took place aboard Jupiter Station, with representatives from both species present. As Drackthorn applied his biological signature to the document, he addressed the assembled humans. "The Kryxian Imperium has encountered 17 spacefaring species in our history. 16 surrendered or were conquered. You are the first to show us another path." He paused, his alien features almost expressing admiration. "We came seeking worthy adversaries and found worthy teachers instead." 3 months later, Jupiter Station had been transformed. Sections now accommodated Kryxian physiology, while cultural exchange programs flourished. Alara watched from her office as a group of Kryxian scientists studied human art, their weapons ceremonially sheathed. Rivera entered with a data tablet. "The Council has made their decision about Project Phoenix." And Alara asked. "We're not dismantling it," he replied. "But we're not expanding it either. The defensive technologies will remain in place with ongoing research approved. They're calling it prudent preparedness." Alara nodded, feeling both relief and lingering unease. 3,000 years of peace wasn't a guarantee of perpetual harmony. It was a gift, and one we now know we must be prepared to defend. "The irony doesn't escape me," Rivera remarked. "We preserved peace by remembering war." "Not just remembering it," Alara corrected, "by transforming it into something better." On the observation deck, Dr. Vega was conducting a seminar with human and Kryxian participants. "Cultural adaptation is a form of evolution," he explained. "The Kryxians evolved for physical combat. Humans evolved for social cooperation, but both approaches represent successful survival strategies." A young Kryxian raised a limb in the equivalent of a raised hand. "If combat is not the ultimate test between species, then what is?" "Perhaps," Vega suggested, "it's the ability to recognize strength in difference, to incorporate new ideas rather than conquer them." As the session concluded, Alara received a notification that both the United Earth Council and the Kryxian High Command had approved the establishment of a permanent diplomatic mission. The message included a final note from Director Osa. "Perhaps this is how peace spreads, not through the absence of conflict, but through its transformation." Alara turned her gaze to the stars beyond Jupiter. Humanity's 3,000 years of peace had not made them weak as the Kryxians initially believed. Instead, it had given them perspective the warrior species lacked, the understanding that true power lay not in domination but in connection. The Kryxian fleet departed the next day, leaving behind diplomatic representatives and cultural exchange officers. As the massive ships vanished into hyperspace, Alara couldn't help but wonder what other challenges waited among the stars. But for the first time since the war declaration arrived, she faced that uncertainty without fear. Humanity had remembered how to defend itself without sacrificing what made it worth defending.